Hi guys, welcome in. Tammy here with Bentley Lane Creations coming to you with today's sweet little DIY craft. Today we have the Merry and Bright Christmas door hanger. She is 10 inches in diameter and oh so cute. Now, you could put her in a wreath. You could hang her by herself. You can add embellishments to the top. You can see it already comes pre-drilled for a hanger. You can use a hanger of your choice, a ribbon, a burlap, jute rope, wire, whatever you want to use is okay. Now, I decided to do the back in my Waverly Antiquing Wax. You know how I love to finish the backs of all my projects, no matter what. And so I always use the Waverly wax in the color antique, and I just apply it with a baby wipe and it goes on like a stain. I let that dry. I flipped it over, and now I am using for this I used the Crafters Collection Princess Pink, and then for this center section I am using the Crafters Collection Red. Now Crafters Collection is a Hobby Lobby brand paint. You can use any color or any type of paint you want. I just use regular acrylic paints, and you can buy them in any store, Walmart, Hobby Lobby, Michael's, not Joann's anymore, bummer. And you can use any colors that you prefer. Now I'm styling her up to go with my Christmas decor, so these are the colors I chose. So now I am going to paint her collar in this color Southern Bluebell, and that is a Crafters Collection paint as well. And then I'm doing the edging on her little collar just to give it a little bit of depth and some dimension there in sky blue, and that is also a Crafters Collection paint. Now, I decided to do her hair in the color light gray by Deco Art. And then I'm going to go in on top of it with Folk Art Metallic Silver. Now, in the past, I have painted her hair white and then gone over it, just done some little streaks with the metallic silver. But this time I decided to use a light gray and then add a little bit of that metallic silver and a little bit, you see me, that I'm adding that here. It's very, very subtle, but in person you can see the shimmer and it's really, really cool. And then I just add a little bit of white accenting to that, and I think it turned out really, really nice. So I'm going to paint her face. I use the color Burlap, and that is a Deco Art brand paint, and I use that on all my faces. I like it. Now there are lighter colors and there are darker colors, so you can choose what you prefer, but I just like this color. I just like the color of the burlap. So I always use that on any hands or faces that I paint, and I think it turns out really nice. It's still light enough, but that you can see all of the scoring on there, but it's dark enough to cover up the wood and know that you've painted it. So I just like it. I like the color. And now you see me taking my little Dollar Tree tool. I'm just cleaning out her little eyelashes and her mouth because I'm not going to paint those. I'm just going to leave those with the score marks, but I am going to paint the circles or the insides of her eyes, and I'm using black. Now, what you see me using here is an acrylic marker, and you can pick these up anywhere that you can buy crafts as well, or even on Amazon. I buy a lot of things on Amazon, and I either pick them up at Hobby Lobby, Michael's, or Amazon is where I go. And any craft acrylic paint marker would work. I used to paint them by hand with the paintbrush, but I've found lately that I'm really, really liking using those pins for things like that are smaller and just need a little one little thing painted. I did her cheeks with Distress Oxide. That is an ink, and the color Flamingo Pink. Now you can see I just did two little, you can see it up there in the top left corner, and I just dotted them on, and I'll just use my finger later when I'm getting ready to put it all together, and I'll just kind of lighten it up with my finger, smear it around, if you will, spread it out. And then I painted the little edges, the little scalloped edges in white, and I'm painting the outside of the little candy in white. And then I'm going to paint up all the letters for Merry Bright in white as well. Now, everything that I paint gets 2 coats. And what I'm using to apply my paint is a makeup wedge. I use makeup wedges to paint all of my products, all of my wood kits, and I either cut them in half, in 4s. Sometimes I leave them whole, just depending on how large the piece is that I'm going to paint. And I just feel like the makeup wedge holds the paint better, and I use less paint that way than I do when I use a brush. But you can use a brush, or I certainly used to use brushes more, and now I just use them for little accents here and there. I decided to paint the word "and" in the color Shamrock. That is a Crafter's Collection paint as well. And so I did the inside of the peppermint candy in green. I decided to make it a green peppermint instead of a red one, since I'm using red all over everywhere else. I just wanted to add a little bit of green in there, so I did those 2 things in green. And now I'm edging this, the red center part in white. I just took my sponge and just did light white edging on that, just to kind of soften it up on the edges and just give it a little bit of dimension. I love doing that. And I painted her little button in the pink color, that Princess Pink, and then I edged that with the red sponge and just kind of went around that with the red. And now you see me here with a really thin brush, adding some accents with just the white here and there as I see fit. And you know how I like to do it. I just add them here and there, and then I kind of sit back and look at it, and then I'll change it up. Now, when I was getting ready to put her together, I wanted to add the white, as I said, to her hair. So I added some white. And instead of using the little thin brush, I used the sponge, added some white in there. And now I'm adding a little bit of silver back on top of that. And so I'm just kind of going back and forth until I get it exactly how I want it. I didn't like those you see there on her little bun. I put some white stripes. I didn't like the way it looked. So I wanted to change that up. So I did that. And then I'm just going to use my little Dollar Tree tool to clear out any of those scored lines. And that just really, really makes it pop when you do that. It just pulls out any paint that's seeped in there. Now you don't have to do that. And then there you saw me using my fingers on her cheeks. You don't have to use the Dollar Tree tool to do that, but you can certainly paint right over those score marks and leave it. But I just like the way it looks when they're cleared out. So it's just a personal preference. Now I used my dotting tool and I put little dots on her collar on each little scalloped edge. And then I used a larger dotting tool and put red dots on the pink part of this. And then I took my red sponge and just went around the outside edge. And then in some spots, I felt like I got it a little too thick, so I went back with some pink and just cleaned that up a little bit. And that's the fun thing about using paints is there's really no harm in it. You can always go back and go over it multiple times if you want to change it. If you start putting it together like I am here and you decide, oh, I don't really like the way that color looks with that color, you can always just repaint it. There's no, you can't mess this up. The only thing you can mess up is if you glue it down in the wrong spot. You're not going to get it back up to re-glue it unless you're using a glue that takes a while to adhere. Now I use what's called Stick Fast. It's my very favorite. It has a very thin tip, and it is a super glue gel. So it gives you a little bit of leeway. You can move the pieces around a little bit if you need to, but it is an instant hold. So once it's down and it's secured, there's no getting it back off. So that's why I always say dry fit your pieces, know exactly where everything needs to go and in what order they need to be glued before you start gluing, because you don't want to get into a situation where you've glued something down and now you can't fix it or move it if it needs to be moved. So here I am. I dry fit everything up, and then I am now just gluing everything down in the order I feel like it needs to be glued. Now, this is a personal preference. You can glue it any which way you want to glue it, but that's why I tell you to always dry fit first. So you saw me dry fit that, and then I glued her collar on. So now I know where she's going to go, and it's just easier for me that way. And so I'm just going to continue to glue her all on up. And this turned out so adorable. I absolutely love her. Love, love, love her. Now, like I said, you can add embellishments to the top. You could add however you want to hang her with wire, jute rope, ribbon, burlap, whatever it is that you decide to use as your hanger. And then if you want to add greenery or a bow or whatever you want to add to yours, I can see some greenery looking really, really cute on her. But it just depends. You can also tuck her into a wreath. So it just depends on how you're going to use her, where she's going to go, and all of the things. How stinking adorable is she? Now, here she is all done up with my jute rope and the bow. I decided to do a mussy bow, and there she is hanging. How beautiful is she? Thanks so much for watching.